So I'm going to get this started here. Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn.
Yo.
Hey, Bruce McGowan's off today, but we have a special guest on the line, Lee Steinberg, who arguably the most famous sports agent in history.
Now, let me tell you something. But before there was Orrin Tellum, Tom Condon, Scott Boris, it was Lee Steinberg, baby, leading the charge. I mean, this is more than just oh, by the way, Gaston Sport. No, this is a big fish that we got here.
Exactly. In fact, Lee, I want to first ask you, because everyone knows the movie Jerry Maguire. How accurate was that movie?
Cameron Crowe called me up in 1993 and asked if he could do a years of following me around to pick up atmosphere for film about a sports agent. So he went to the 93 NFL draft where Drew Bledsoe was the first pick, my client, up to press conference with Parcells. He went to elite meetings, scouting day at USC, to Super Bowl parties, to a series of games, and spent hour after hour in my office, and I told him stories, lots and lots of stories. And we agreed that we wouldn't ever be specific about what out of that research showed up on the screen, but when my then wife saw the film, she said, "Did you have to tell him everything?"
Yeah. So you mean Cuba Gooding Jr. wasn't really your first draft choice there, right?
Well, I'll tell you, I had to take Cuba Gooding Jr. down to the Super Bowl in Phoenix and make him in. He was a wide receiver for a week, and put him in role. I actually had to show the quarterback, Jerry O'Connell, how to throw a football because he had gone to NYU and they did not have football. So, and they descended on my office, took photos out the window, took my photos, and somehow Jerry Maguire's head was superimposed on my body. And it was interesting. And I had to vet the script to make sure that the willing suspension of disbelief that will hold you in a motion picture without making you think it's a spoof was safeguarded. So it was an interesting project.
Now, hopefully, it can be told. I mean, looking back, were you blown away about how much of a mega hit it was?
I mean, at a certain level, it changed my life because I walk through airports to this day, and people either scream, "Show me the money," or they say, "Will you say it to me? Will you say it to me?" And I think what happens in a sports themed film, generally, if it's based on a story, if it has aspiration and the rest of it, they do very well. That was the highest grossing sports film of all time until The Blind Side. And I think it largely because there was a love story there, and it humanized young person's fight in a society for maintaining values and how he was going to get integrity back into his life. And so they took our requirement that each of the athletes go back and retrace their roots to the high school, collegiate, and professional community to set up charitable projects like Steve Young setting up Forever Young Foundation in San Francisco to help youth charities, or endowing a full scholarship at BYU, or work done putting the 134th single mother into the first home she and her family will ever own by making the down payment and then having it outfitted. So that has always been the thrust of our practice. It's athletes as role models. So if you have Lennox Lewis cut a public service announcement that says real men don't hit women, you can do more to change young people's attitudes towards domestic violence than 1,000 authority figures ever could.
How affected are you by the fact that, I mean, you were essentially the first, Lee. I mean, there's all kinds of disciples in your wake. We just had one on. That's one, Steve Baker, one of your disciples. I mean, people have just come after you, and they've used your model of, okay, land the guy the big contract, but let's go ahead, let's give something back. Let's set up this foundation, that foundation, and hey, you're already in the Set for Life Club. Let's set you up so that the riches, they're great, but success doesn't always have to be all about money.
So it's also critical to stimulate the best values in a young man so that, and get him thinking about second career. So when he goes back and sets up a program in the community he grew up in, it lays down roots. And to go back to the campus as a Steve Young or Troy Aikman or Eric Garros or Drew Bledsoe did and establish.
Listen to
I know
him rattle off his clients. Look at that. Go ahead.
It links them with those alums in a helpful way. And a bright athlete today is aware of the fact that sport like football is really popular among middle-aged businessmen. So if you're Red Jones or Tim McDonald or Steve Young and you're in Santa Clara, and guess what's proximate to that? Well, just the biggest venture capital community anywhere, and high tech. So it's not by chance that Red Jones has a couple $1 billion hedge fund that he's established and runs, or Steve Young sold a series of computer companies.
True or false? Is it true that Ray was the first one that actually came up with the "Show me the money"?
We were out at the meetings in Palm Desert when Cameron was following me around, and I was showing Tim off to teams, trying to get someone to bid for him, which fortunately ended up the 49ers. And one night they went up into Tim's hotel room, and Money Line with Lou Dobbs was on in the background. So Cameron asked Tim what he was looking for in the free agency experience, and he said, well, and gestured towards the screen, I'm looking for someone to show me some love and respect. I'm looking for a team to show me some winning. I'm looking for a team, and then he said, show me the money.
There we go.
The other famous line from that movie is when Renee Zellweger says, "You had me at hello."
Oh yeah.
So now, Lee, it seems like you have kind of an advantage because if I'm a first round draft choice and I want the best, I'm going to go with the best. And so it seems like because you are the number one, you've had the number one pick for record 8 times just in the NFL. Doesn't your success just breed more success?
Absolutely. So what happens is that we profile athletes to make sure that we're matching up in values with someone that wants to be a role model, is going to use football or baseball or basketball as a springboard to success. And in football, the fact that we have represented 60 first-round draft picks, actually 63, and the very first pick in the first round 8 years, and have sort of specialized in the quarterback position, does attract them. And in baseball, a big practice, which for years I did with my partner Jeff Morad, where we had T.C. Sabathia and Manny Ramirez and Adam Dunn and Will Clark and Matt Williams and a whole series of stars. So it is a help, but it always is a matter of tuning in specifically to that young man's value system and his priorities. So it's not generic. It's the biggest skill in this is listening. People always think it's speaking. It's drawing out another human being. And men, I know this will come as a big surprise to you, don't share as easily as women do.
Sure.
So it's a matter of peeling back the layers of the onion so that you can deeply understand someone's greatest anxieties and fears and their greatest hopes and dreams. And once that happens, then it's possible to truly fulfill a young man.
Okay. Hey, Lee, stay with us. We're going to have to cut to commercial break. But one quick thing I was going to say is that, Lee's at a point where he gets to choose who he's going to represent, whereas all these other agents, they're the ones who are clamoring for it. Okay, here is our theme. Again, is baseball stuff. Ready for this one? In the 1960s, what slugger set a major league record with winning a batting title by hitting over 360, then fell apart the next season and didn't even hit 250? The first 3 emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. In the 1960s, what slugger set a major league record with winning a batting title by hitting over 360, then fell apart the next season and didn't even hit 250? Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back with Lee Steinberg. Great. Okay, that's our first segment. That's a tough one, huh? You know the answer to that one, Lee?
I do not know.
It wasn't a steroid era, so the 60, not Roberto.
No fair looking it up on Google.
I
just teased you.
wouldn't know how.
Yeah.
1960, jeez. Well, it would be
Just
Frank
in the
Robinson.
1960s.
He wouldn't fall off like that.
He wouldn't fall off like
What's
that.
the answer?
When we come back, I'll give it to you.
American League or National League? Can you give me that?
I am pretty sure it was the American League.
American League.
Not
That's a
Ted
tough one.
Williams.
No?
Yeah.
He was managing by then.
Yeah, Ted Williams last year was 1960.
Yeah. Boy.
No,
Oops,
Gabe.
shoot. No, hold on here. Let me. One quick thing I got to do here.
I don't know. I'm stumped.
All right.
Well, that's why you're not winning whatever he's giving you.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I used to ask easier questions, but I had to start asking a little harder ones. Keep these guys sort of engaged here. Let me just do this here.
Did anybody get it?
Well, we'll find out.
Our success rate over these shows has been about, I don't know, what do you think? More than 50%? 60?
I'd say, yeah.
When
I'd say
Bruce
it's-
is
I'd
here,
say
when
it's-
we're at full strength?
Yeah, I'd say about 60%.
60%? Yeah.
Of course, I get 100%.
Oh, well.
Because I come up with the questions. Okay. All right. You guys ready?
Yep, let's do it.
Let's do it again. All right. Here we go. Welcome back again to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn.
USA! USA!
That's right. Against Ghana, huh?
Yeah.
And
Portugal next.
Portugal next?
Yeah.
Okay. We have, before we get back to our guest Lee Steinberg, we do have this trivia question to answer. In the 1960s, what slugger set a major league record with winning a batting title by hitting over 360, then fell apart the next season and didn't even hit 250? I heard
Mickey Mantle.
Mickey Mantle. No. Norm Cash, 1961 to 62.
You could put a gun to my head, and
Still
I'm not.
Did
would have
he
guessed
play
that.
for the Tigers?
Played for the Tigers, and I think he started with the Dodgers.
Yep,
Yeah,
there you go.
that sounds about right. Okay, so
Excellent knowledge.
so we have on the phone. We have on the phone Lee Steinberg, the famous sports agent.
Yeah, there's only one man on this thread that had a feature done on him by 60 Minutes, and Edward is not you or me.
Gee, thanks a lot, Bert.
That was something. Lee, huh? When 60 Minutes comes calling and they got a camera following you around. I mean that's man. I mean that's huge.
What was bigger was Lifestyles of Rich and Famous.
Yeah, I remember that one. In fact, Lee, you
Is that
did
Robin Leach?
Yeah, Robin Leach. Yeah, the lifestyles of the rich and famous.
Yes.
In fact, Ted, you did a TED talk at Chapman University. That's where my son just graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. So let me ask you this: you have this new book coming out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Ooh,
I wrote The Agent, my 40-year career of making deals and changing the game. First of all, to set up a template for people that might be interested in being involved in the profession somehow. It's the passion of young people at business school, law school, sports management, all sorts of courses. And to show them a different way how you can retain your ethics and your values and still be conventionally successful. And that the real battle in sports is not labor versus management. It's the battle that, say, the NFL would have with the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, home box office, Walt Disney World, and every other discretionary form of entertainment. We're not putting bread and butter on the table. We're not providing transportation. It's an entertainment that rests on discretionary entertainment that rests on fans wanting to go ahead and go to games, watch on television, use social media. So the real key is not to have negative contract negotiations that push fans away or bad collective bargaining agreements. I also wanted to give a behind-the-scenes look at how deals really happen and what the considerations are going into it. So I tell a lot of stories. Hopefully some of them are funny and amusing. I spent some time on concussion because I believe it's an existential threat to football as we know it. And I also wanted to talk about a battle I had with alcoholism and um, how it snuck up on me and how I made it back. Provide some hope, inspiration, people who might be out there still struggling.
That's why at the ESPYS, he's going to get Sports Agent Comeback Player of the Year. Right?
So the point is, it's autobiographical, and it starts in Los Angeles with the grandfather who in Hillcrest Country Club, which was where all of the Indians hung out. And he's sitting on the lap of Marilyn Monroe and going to my first baseball game with George Burns. Then we move up to Berkeley in the 60s when Ronald Reagan's governor and I'm student body president and rock music and alternative lifestyles were the order of the day. And then kicks off in 1975 as I'm a dorm counselor at Cal Berkeley, working my way through law school, and they moved Steve Bartkowski into the dorm, and he asked me to represent him, and it's 1975, and he's the first pick in the first round of the NFL draft. Traces the year since.
Wow, I bet your head was spinning. I mean, that was your first big one. I mean, you're this kid out of Berkeley. You got the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, and you're there to kind of at least start at the beginning of shaping his football future and beyond.
Well, there really wasn't organized sports agentry then. A team could still hang up the phone and say, "We don't deal with agents." And there was no collective bargaining agreement, so most of the young people had their parents represent them, or they just accepted whatever was offered. So, and the economics were so different. So Bartkowski made headlines across the country with this stunning $600,000 package.
Sure.
You know, a signing bonus of $250,000.
Yeah, back then.
It's going to ruin, sports ethics forever.
Wow. And did you still stay in contact with Steve?
I do. You know, he's been very successful in construction and other things. And when they did induction of Steve into the San Jose Sports Hall of Fame, I sent up a video that said, "Thank you so much for saving me from a life of drudgery in the law."
Sure. You know what's interesting is coincidentally, a friend of mine, Stacy Bailey, was his wide receiver and was the famous tip to Billy White Hughes Johnson back in '82.
You know, the interesting thing is Cal at that point had Chuck Muncie, running back. It had Wesley Walker and Steve Rivera, wide receivers. It had Steve Bartkowski was followed by Joe Roth, who had he not died would win the first pick. And Cal was so loaded offensively, Ted Albrecht played offensive tackle. And the coaches that came out of that era were, Mike went on to be the Raider, Mike White to be the Raider head coach as well at Illinois, and Don Capers coached at Carolina, and then at Houston, and Al Saunders was the head coach at San Diego, and Paul Hackett, head coach at SC. It just went on and on. So those were golden days for Cal sports.
Steve Bartkowski. Lee, quick question for you. When so let's say you've already done the contract for the player, how much do you stay in contact with them, like helping them with their finances? You know, a lot of these kids come out of college, they don't know what to do with their money. So how much do you get involved from that end of it?
Well, first of all, he is helping someone get through the draft process and make decisions in basketball and in football, and a little bit in baseball or hockey, that are intelligent in showcasing their skills. And then the key is to be able to mentor a player so they understand how to make the adjustment. Financial side, we've always bifurcated that duty so that financial planners who specialize in that have to come in and do it. You really have a tale of two cities. Those primary skills in terms of budgeting and tax and the rest that anybody would need to be able to have some ability to manage their own life.
I like about Steve Young. He's a very intelligent guy.
I was just thinking about Steve. Weren't you the engineer of the fabled $40 million contract with the LA Express?
I was. The two leagues were fighting each other
Yeah.
at the time. And in 1984, the USFL had picked the draft clean, so they'd signed Reggie White and Mike Rozier and Gary Zimmerman, who went to the Hall of Fame, and had signed Herschel Walker the year prior. So the key to their success would be to have a successful franchise in Los Angeles, and we're a star city, loves quarterbacks. So he got caught up, and he really wanted to sign in the NFL, but Cincinnati had the first pick, and they had Ken Anderson there. So it was a simple negotiation. I just kept saying no, 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 and eventually got to the point of eating. John Elway had been significantly, and then the tax rate was so high, we went to an annuity of $37 million. So it was a $42 million contract. When it's announced and rather leads off the CBS Nightly News with it, there are headlines all around the world. And Steve, who was a low-key, good values young man, was held up as a symbol of sports economics run amok.
Yeah, because he always jokes even today. He just goes, hey, I keep telling everybody, it's an annuity. It's an annuity.
He received a good $5 million of cash prior to that.
There you go.
And then, the annuity ended up being placed by the USFL because the original owner went bankrupt.
Yeah.
The league did.
That's why you got to get it with buy it with the insurance company, get it all set. Metropolitan, one of those big ones. Okay, we're going to cut to our second commercial break here. Here's the theme is baseball stuff. Who was the first pitcher in history to record 3,000 strikeouts and have less than 1,000 walks at the same time? And this is not, back in the dead ball era, so don't worry about that, okay? The first three emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Who was the first pitcher, which, by the way, this is in the 1980s, so it'll be someone you know. The first pitcher in history to record.
Are you saying I don't know?
Baseball you may know.
Okay, all right.
No, I know you'll know this guy. Hold on. The first pitcher in history to record 3,000 strikeouts and have less than 1,000 walks at the same time. Don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101 will be right back. Okay. No, it's not Nolan Ryan.
Andy Koufax.
No,
he
it's
was
1980, so I mean
the
somebody
80s.
like Steve Carlton or somebody like that.
Or Roger Clemens.
Yeah, that's a good one. Roger's a good one. Very
a good
powerful picture.
Yes, let's see here. Okay, this down here.
Well, you got to be either 2/3, almost twice the age of some of these general managers today, huh? I mean, you got when the secretary buzzes them and says, "Steve, Lee Steinberg's on the line." I mean, there's, I guess, in the spirit of gamesmanship, you got a little bit of an advantage, huh?
Well, yeah, because the funny thing is, some of them, I've spoken on 79 campuses.
Yeah.
And some of them have come to the speeches or written the books.
Right.
Okay, so we got one more segment. I don't know if you want to stay with us, Lee.
I just did a negotiation with the St. Louis Cardinals, and the guy sent me a proposal and sent a quote about Georgia Frontiere, who used to own the Rams, from that where I knew he read my book because it was me telling Georgia that I wanted to do this negotiation, and she comes back and says it wouldn't be propitious, and I said why? She said because Mars is in retrograde. She was like into
Astrology.
Right.
So we couldn't do it.
So the guy had obviously seen your book. Oh man.
Okay. Lee, was there anything specific that you wanted to cover?
Well, I got a million questions.
Okay.
Maybe concussion a little bit.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Let's finish this off there.
Or
Okay.
if you want to ask, it's sports econ. So if you want to ask me where our field is
Yeah,
You know,
that's
in
good.
terms
Sure.
of economics of, will this ever end?
Oh, actually, that's excellent. Okay, let's get right into it. Hold on a second. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn.
Oh.
And when we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Who was the first pitcher in history to record 3,000 strikeouts and have less than 1,000 walks at the same time?
I'm going to guess, I know I'm wrong. I'm going to guess Steve Carlton.
No. Okay, so Roger Clemens. No. Okay, so I'll give you a hint. 1982, Cubs.
Oh, Ferguson Jenkins?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Fergie.
Okay, yeah, that'll work.
And we have on the phone famed sports agent Lee Steinberg. Lee, but let's get right into the economics of things. Where's sports heading with contracts? And I mean, it kind of seems like there's no ceiling.
There is no ceiling, and to understand what's going on, you first have to understand television, because when three networks and a couple independents gave way to hundreds of different stations, it meant exponentially more sports games on the air, and then more analysis, highlight shows by a huge factor. So first of all, you've got all that money flowing in. It had big effects on rights fees. So in the NFL in 1976, each team that shared the National Football television contract got $2 million. Well, that went up to 17 per team per season in 1989, and then Fox jumped into the mix, and currently each team is making $130 million.
Yeah, and didn't the LA Dodgers just announce not too long ago?
$1 million local television.
Yeah, they said here $7 billion over 25 years.
So television is the first source of revenue, and it has had a huge effect on franchise values. The second is stadia and arena that have naming rights, have luxury boxes, have sponsorship, have signage. The third is social media. So you now have a variety of different ways that you can enjoy sports. The stock exchange is where the value of a player goes up and down, ways to see every game every time, ways to put it together with fantasy sports. The estimate is that 20% of the computers in use during football season in businesses were being used for fantasy sports. So there's 40 to 50 million people playing that every single week. That money flows in. So it's coming from every place you can imagine. I actually wrote a front-page story for Sports Business Journal where I hypothesized that you put a monitor in front of every seat at the stadium. Down one side runs your rotisserie or your fantasy statistics. Down the other side runs your gambling bets. Underneath you have capacity to talk smack and text people inside and outside the stadium. You then have the ability to go ahead and vote on one play call that the coach must call per game, and the vote on one referee overturn that the ref has to follow a game. And then you can touch it and order stuff from the snack bar. You can, and it can program every amazing offer, contest, game.
I think it's a neat idea, but I wonder it seems like it'll take away from the game itself. But it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, here's the problem. You're in my generation. I know Vern for sure. Those of us who were alive when the dinosaurs and
when the baseball was square.
The earth
Sure.
actually can watch a game, but for a younger generation, they're used to multitasking, and so they want to be able to tweet and YouTube and Twitter and text and do every other thing. So you have to keep them engaged. And really, our business, the agentry business, has morphed so that, along with representation, it triggers marketing and then content supply. So we're doing sports themed motion pictures, television shows, video games, any kind of app that can be used, and we're involved in consulting and driving those companies.
Yeah, we had Bill Schlau from the San Francisco Giants on a few months ago, and he was talking about all the Wi-Fi that they were instituting at AT&T Park.
Yeah, and even to take the social media further, now, I mean, it's kind of fun. In the old days, yeah, somebody would negotiate a contract. You know, they go ahead and sign it, go to the league office, get approval, and then away you go, and then it gets reported. Now, these kids now, I mean, they're getting signed, and then as they're actually signing the contract, they have to take a picture of them actually signing so they can post it on their Twitter site.
Well, that's right. And years ago, I anticipated this and put together a concept called Athlete Direct, where with the biggest football, baseball, basketball players on the internet, you could read their weekly diaries, you could read about their charitable things, you could e-commerce application, and Athlete Direct, huge company, and so the revenue that we received from that was much more than what was happening in sports representation. So again, our field is shifting this way.
The other hot topic is the NFL. You know, the big multi-billion-dollar machine, and this whole concussion issue. Lee, how you see this thing playing out? Because I think the regular, Joe Schmo that just kind of, picks up a paper or whatever and reads about this stuff might just ask themselves, well, can't the NFL just cut a check for $1 billion and just make these people go away? But it's not that simple.
They cut one for 975. So here's the problem: if you believe, as I do, that every time the offensive lineman hits a defensive lineman, it produces low-level subconcussive hit, and a lineman walks out of pro football with 10,000 of them, none of which have been diagnosed, none of which have been he's aware of, and the aggregate creates a much bigger problem. Imagine athletes who are bigger, stronger, and faster than we ever anticipated. So imagine Jadeveon Clowney running a 4.5 40 at 265 pounds. Physics of the force have changed. The actual G-force on the line of scrimmage has changed. So, and people get these in a variety of different sports, and not just in pro football, college, and high school.
Yeah, because the cranium hasn't changed. I mean, they're yeah.
So the point is this: it's the next 50% of the mothers in this country understand these facts and tell their kids, you can play any sport but not tackle football. It won't kill. It would just change the socioeconomics so that the type of people who play football will be the same people who box, knowing that what is at the end of the road, but needing to escape economic poverty. So my sense is that we can do much better on helmetry. So there's tape technology, which has a absorption compression system that actually attenuates the energy wave and reduces the blow by 50%. There is research in nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals to try to find something that either anticipates the problem and prophylactically sets the brain up to be less apt to get concussed, or at the time of concussion stops the swelling or later heals the brain, and better techniques on the sidelines to low-level subconcussive hits and not send players back into the play. We can do things to make it safer. Not safe, but safer.
Yeah, the cynics, though, Lee, are going to say, well, still, those hospital balls are still going to be thrown. Guys are going to get laid out. I mean, these incidents, these essentially head-on collisions 30, 40 times a game are still going to happen.
And they'll outlaw throwing down the middle.
Yeah.
We think of those plays, but actually the highest concussion rate is among linemen.
Yeah.
If you think about it, they hit on every play, so that they're stunned after that play, but it's part of football, so they go on. They're getting, as I said, a little bit of brain chemistry alteration on every play.
It's funny, helmet to helmet, right there, isn't it?
Yeah, that was Lee's point. Yeah.
Maybe they should put them in those big sumo wrestling outfits that the kids wear when they.
Well, Steve Wallace had the concussion helmet back in the day.
Yeah, they called it the kazoo helmet. Remember?
It did help prevent concussions, but the problem was, from Peter and Paul, the minute he stopped suddenly, it had a whiplash effect.
Ooh.
So that didn't seem to be the best way to go.
Well, Well, Lee, thank you very much for joining us in the studio today.
Yeah, this has been a real treat, Lee. I mean, for a guy that's been a true trailblazing survivor, and this been, I mean, you've been on top, knocked down, climbed back up again. Just stay, just keep on keeping on, man.
Well, you know, first of all, you can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Lee Steinberg, or visit our Steinberg Sports and Entertainment website and listen to my podcast every Thursday.
Wow.
Sports USA.
Listen to him. He's busy.
SteinbergSports.com. And look, it's all a matter of perspective. You know, we're not starving peasants in Darfur in the middle of the Civil War. We don't have cancer or other things. So the problems that come up in life, there's no excuse but to try to stay optimistic and keep pushing for positive change.
Well said.
Lee Steinberg, famed sports agent of not just the year, but the century, right?
I'll tell you this quick one. What my agency briefly tried to dip its toe in the water on athlete representation, and they signed Marshall Falk at the time, and then they were all happy. The early '90s, all happy, all excited, and then they realized what they were up against, and they had to jump out. So. That's the power of Steinberg Moret right there.
I guess most agents are attorneys, aren't they, Lee?
Right now, to be certified by the NFLPA, one needs two things. One is to have a degree or post-grad degree, and then undergo a background check. So the unions certify them all. So a good chunk are lawyers, but they act as certified agents. And Vern, I went the other way and represented most of the people on Bay Area television and in Los Angeles for years.
You had Pete Wilson. You had a lot of people at the time. It was Econ. You had a lot of people in the newsroom.
Wendy Dakuda, Dave Mack, and Wayne Walker.
Oh wow.
Dennis Richmond, Elaine Corral, Suzanne Shaw.
Yeah.
Pete Wilson. Yeah, just a few.
Yeah, I guess with the after seeing what you did with the sports athletes, I guess these guys just sought you out, right? I mean, really, it's.
Actually, they came from the very beginning, so it's and news talent. They're older, relate more at a certain level, and they're really bright, and it ends up being interesting.
Okay, well, I told Billy Bean that if he needed me to fill in for one of his pitchers if they got hurt, I could throw in the high 60s. So maybe I'll have you represent me. All right. Again, Lee Steinberg, thank you so much for joining us on Sports Econ 101. Okay.
All right. Terrific guy.
Yeah, that was fun.
Terrific guy.
Okay, we are going to cut to our third and final commercial break. Here's the question. Again, baseball stuff. Which pitcher, and I'll give you the year, 2004, set a record for throwing the most strikeouts in a season by a relief pitcher?
Most strikeouts by a relief pitcher.
By a relief pitcher. Okay, the first three emails with the correct answer. We're going to free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com the answer to this question. Which pitcher in 2004 set a record for throwing the most strikeouts in a season by a relief pitcher? And this isn't necessarily a hint, but I'll tell you, it was 157 strikeouts in less than 95 innings. He went 6-5 in 80 games with no saves.
No saves.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
So much for the Mariano Rivera question.
The answer. That's not it. Okay, don't touch that dial because Sports Econ 101 will be right back with some closing comments. That was good. Yeah, very enjoyable. Too bad Brucey wasn't here.
Where is he? Vacation?
No, he's doing a KGO thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, so did you get my email before?
July 1st. What is that? Is that 2 weeks from today?
Yes. Let's see. Today is 2 weeks today, and we'll just do it at 4 instead of 3. Does that work for you?
4 instead of 3. Yeah. If I'm not anchoring or anything like that, yeah, I'm open for that.
That's just to get this. That's apparently the only time this guy can come in. And he's kind of interesting. If you look at his background, because he played ball and kind of a little bit of an old timer, not too much though.
Speaking of an old timer, we're doing a story tonight on an 80-year-old hockey player.
Who's still playing?
Still playing. He's not
I know
he's not a pro hockey player,
Sure.
but he plays in this adult league. But he's
awesome.
80 years old, loves game, but you know, if you're in these hockey leagues, you know, the only time you get ice time is like 10, 11 o'clock at night
Yes.
at these
Yeah,
rinks.
yeah.
So you know, so we're shooting a story. I'm not working today. I'm not part of that crew, thank God. But they don't hit the ice till 11 o'clock tonight in San Jose.
I got my real estate broker. He plays hockey. He's got a couple broken legs and stuff like that. He's a little guy, but I guess he kind of goes out there. Yeah, it's like this really late stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll set that you're okay for that. And then next week I've got Steve Travers back with us. He's the author who played baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk about 20 years after OJ, because he wrote a new book.
Yeah,
on
this
that.
week, 20 years.
Yeah.
In fact, 20 years ago today, the
Yeah.
Ford Bronco Jays.
Yeah, so that'll be kind of fun too. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, last time I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn.
Down the stretch he comes.
Here we go. Okay. Which pitcher in 2004 set a record for throwing most strikeouts in a season by a relief pitcher?
And it can't be a closer because there were no saves involved, right?
That's no saves involved.
Wow.
You know, it's funny. I wonder. I don't know. Anyway, I'll just tell you. Brad Lidge.
Okay.
Yeah, Brad Lidge. Yeah. Okay.
See, if Bruce was here, we'd go on and have a couple of anecdotes. Me,
Yeah.
I got nothing.
I got nothing. I just have the answer. That's all. And next week we're going to have Steve Travers. He was with us before, former Major League Baseball pitcher, authored many books. This time we're going to talk about the 20-year anniversary of the OJ trial.
And we should mention, and not to save it up for the end of the show, we should mention how unfortunate the passing was of Tony Gwynn.
Oh my God! I mean, love that guy.
54 years young, died of cancer, and he contributed. He swears he got this cancer from chewing tobacco those years.
I know he always had kind of large cheeks, but I never saw it like Goose Gossett.
Well, it was such a big man. I mean, his cheeks were so puffy. Couldn't tell whether the back he was in there or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a nice guy,
Yeah.
and as great a player as he was a nice guy.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys like Cal Ripken. You never hear a bad word about him. Okay.
All 20 of his years in San Diego.
That helps. You know, it really does help. Okay, here's our thoughts for the day. Roger Bannister, the guy who broke the 4-minute mile, said doctors and scientists said that breaking the 4-minute mile was impossible, that one would die in the attempt. Thus, when I got up from the track after collapsing at the finish line, I figured I was dead. And Vince Lombardi said, the harder you work, the harder it is to surrender. That's true. Okay, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and giving away more free vacations for answering trivia questions. And again, our guest next week is expected to be Steve Travers to talk about the 20 years anniversary on the OJ trial.
Please, OJ, pull over.
That's right.
Please,
thanks
OJ.
Thanks for listening on behalf of our team. I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long. Please.